Hello and welcome to the Marana Business Community Podcast, presented by the Marana Chamber of Commerce. In this space, we feature local business leaders making a difference in the Marana community. They share information about their business, what makes them successful, what they have learned, and tips to help you in your business or daily life. I'm Amanda Wiggins, your host for today's podcast. I would now like to welcome our guest for today's show, Rob Sandner, Strategic Business Consultant at Oasis, a Paychex Company. Rob is someone I've quickly come to appreciate and value as an active member of the Marana Chamber of Commerce and community leader. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here today, Rob. Now let's start with, who are you? Who's Rob Sandner?
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate being here. So that's a deeply philosophical question.
Let's do it.
There's like a right and wrong way to answer that, I think.
Well, first tell us who's your guest with us today.
Yeah, so
this is a big part of who you are, right?
That's probably my first identifier for me is I'm a single dad of a little 8-year-old boy. And for the longest, I actually was a little bit self-conscious about the time I would have him and having to work and go visit clients, or I partner with a lot of accountants and benefits brokers and things. And I came to realize pretty quickly that it humanized the whole relationship and people really enjoyed meeting him, and he's a fun little kid. So it made it nice, and it really kind of added that personal touch. But that first and foremost is who I am as a father of a little 8-year-old. I'm a full-time employee, full-time student. Not a lot of people know that. I go to school at the U of A online, pursuing a law degree. And I work in human resources. I'm a local Tucson native, grew up in southern Arizona. My family owned a retail costume shop here in town for about 40 years. So I got to grow up in that environment and watch the hardship that a small business owner goes through, especially a family-ran small business. Then moved away, went to school, did that whole thing in small town Pennsylvania, and came back in 2007. Worked for a small company called Dun & Bradstreet. I was a commercial credit advisor there for about 6 years. And it's funny to say it now because of the environment we've been in for the last year, but I was getting pretty burnt out with looking at a computer screen and talking at the phone all day. So found an opportunity at Paychex, moved over there, started working with local businesses here just in southern Arizona to help with their payroll processing and all that fun stuff. And then 2 years ago, I started with Oasis, who Paychex owns. Oasis's focus is much more on the human resources and strategy side of things, whereas Paychex more focuses on cutting checks and issuing direct deposit and paying taxes. So personally, I like to golf. We love watching pro wrestling. Excited for an event that we're going to in August. So that's exciting that things are opening back up. But yeah, just a local born and bred southern Arizona native that works in the community, plays in the community, and just wants to be a resource for the chamber and really everyone.
That's awesome. I could tell that your care for the community was deep in what you did. And so can you tell us about Oasis and kind of the work that you do through that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that really drew me to Paychex and Oasis is they're a national company. Paychex is a Fortune 1000 company, like $4 or $5 billion a year. But we've got offices all over the nation. So when I started with Paychex, we had an office here in Tucson with a team of probably 12 or 15. We also had an office in Phoenix, one in Albuquerque, one in El Paso. So even though we have this nationwide presence, there's really this local relationship that I was able to build, which nationwide companies, enterprise-sized businesses sometimes catch a bad rap for not having that relationship. So that's really what drew me in. And then being able to be that resource, I know that your employees can make or break your business, and small businesses don't necessarily have the resources to overcome a lot of those challenges that Fortune 500 level companies do. So really what I love about what I do at Oasis is being able to provide and deliver those resources to businesses that are kind of left to their own devices, and helping the little guy, the underdog, if you will, survive in a market where every challenge is going to be in their path to success at some point or another. And right now, especially, the war on talent is a real one. If you're trying to hire a customer service rep and you only have 10 employees, how do I win that new hire over, the Geicos or AFNI? Or we've even here in Southern Arizona have these huge call centers that hire customer service agents. And if you're a small business, how do I compete with that market when I can't maybe afford to pay as much or give as much time off or offer as lucrative of benefits? That's really where I get to come in and kind of help them strategize, which is what I love.
Yeah. In addition to your deep care for this community, that's why I thought you'd be perfect to feature in this podcast for our listeners. We really kind of came together and thought creative solutions to new challenges facing employers. And I think that's, war on talent was some words I heard you say. Can you tell us some of those new challenges and how are employers able to have new solutions to those new challenges that have arose, in the last year and a half?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I don't know that there's a correct answer. I think for every business, it's probably going to be different. For example, just in terms of the clients that I do have here in Southern Arizona, I have a restaurant that had to close its doors, as unfortunate as that is during COVID. I also have a commercial property management company that could not hire people fast enough. They were just looking for warm bodies at one point. So the solution's going to be different based on industry and size and who you're looking to hire. Sometimes it is just a warm person with that, availability to greet your customers. Sometimes it's much more specific and customized. Some of the kind of generic answers that I would suggest companies explore is probably, why would a person want to work for my company? If you can't directly answer that question, I would do some self-assessment on what is the culture I'm looking to cultivate here? What is the goal, not just for myself, but for my company, and most of all for my employees? I learned very early on in my professional career, when I had my son, a manager, coincidentally enough, put it to me this way: the only reason you're at work is to support everything else going on outside of work. So if something comes up with your son or your family or outside of work, you shouldn't be here. You should go take care of what you need to take care of. And that, for me, I don't work for that person anymore, but it really hammered home the idea of life is not about work. Work is about creating a good life for yourself. So I think the answer, again, is going to vary based on what you're hiring or what type of business you run. But that's a baseline that every business owner should be able to answer is, what do we bring to our employees' table besides a paycheck, right? Because far too often that's the focus, is how much I pay you per hour, not realizing that, perfect example is myself. I may be able to go somewhere and make more money. I'm going to the U of A on Paychex' dime. So things like that, even though it's not, I may be making less at the end of the day money-wise, the quality of life for me is far more important than anything. So that's the first thing, is why does a person want to work here? The second thing is, how do I make it make sense for that person? You have to be competitive. You can't be a really great business owner and pay 50% less than everyone else. It's just not going to work. So I think assessing not only how much am I paying my employees, but what are their duties? If I were that employee and I were doing those duties, how much would I expect to make somewhere else? Maybe pull up your best competitor and see what they're hiring for and see what they offer. Look at your benefits. One thing that's unique to Oasis is we specialize in small business, small and medium-sized businesses. So we take lots of clients and pool their roster or their employee base together. So now if I go out with 10 employees and I try to get medical insurance or life insurance or a 401k or whatever the benefit is, you can pool those employees together so that you're able to access things like you are a group of 10,000 employees, but you're really just a group of 10. So it makes, again, it allows that small business to be competitive with the large, the even here in Tucson, we have Honeywell, we have Raytheon, TMC, Banner. We've got these huge enterprise businesses that small businesses generally just can't compete with. And that's what we really give them the access to do.
Yeah. Kind of going back to who you are, can you tell us about that balance? And I want to go back to Oasis, but that you've had with school work and being a parent. So for you, your company's really enabled you to do that. But personally, what are some tips for people and employees who might be wanting to do that?
Yeah. So be patient. That would be probably my number one piece of advice for those people. But it was a challenge. I think everyone in the world, not just in Tucson or Marana, has been challenged over the past 2 years on in one way or another. Some people lost jobs. I lost my stepdad to COVID. So there's lots of different challenges, but I would say the biggest thing that's made the difference for me is finding my why, which it's great because he wakes me up at 6 o'clock every morning.
He reminds you.
He does. Yeah. Why. Hey, I'm the reason you're supposed to wake up now. But no, it really is finding that. Why do I do the things I don't want to do? Finding that motivator for me has been the biggest difference. I think too, staying organized, that's been probably my biggest challenge to overcome, just because that's not my personality. But I know that if you asked my son here what we're doing tomorrow, he knows that tomorrow is craft time because it's on my calendar. I know that I have 2 assignments due tonight because it's on my calendar. So for me, really finding that organization was my area for improvement, and attacking that and being really proactive has allowed me to try to navigate all those things. Truth be told, when COVID first started, we all, I think, thought that it would be a temporary, like it was supposed to be 2 weeks to slow the curve or whatever it was, and it wound up being 1.5 years. So initially, I found I was sitting at the dinner table with my computer, or my son's doing his schoolwork at the dinner table or on the couch or whatever. And I was pretty resistant. And I was thinking it was temporary. Once I really embraced, like, this is what it is for at least a while, and really kind of set routine and set processes and got myself organized, that's when a lot of the challenges I was facing just eliminated themselves automatically, because there was some structure there. And I think that carries through to business too. I think there are really talented, skilled people, chefs and contractors and attorneys who are great at what they do, and they start a business because they're great at what they do, not realizing you have to help other people be great at what they do. And if you don't have the structure or the organization or a clear goal or pathway to get to where you're looking to get to, you're going to have challenges that you never foresaw just because you're flying by the seat of your pants, basically.
Absolutely. Rob, I feel like you couldn't be more walking the walk that you say for the organization, though. You know what Oasis does. No, I think that you're such a genuine person, and I appreciated what you said of employers saying, why would somebody want to be here, and how do I make this space for them, and then you also answering your why for yourself personally. So I just wanted to say that our chamber has had a group come that was labeled Focus on Recovery, and so that's sort of the conversations that they're having is for employers to overcome these new challenges. It's really getting to the core of who people are and who the talent that they want to join their team. And I think that is exactly what you've illustrated. And so with that, I'd ask, what sets your company apart? And you've answered that, I've seen that answer in a lot of your conversation, but specifically, what is that?
I think the biggest thing is Paychex as a whole was created with the small business in mind. Our founder, I'm a little bit of, call it a fanboy, call it a geek, whatever the term is now. Yeah. But our founder, a little bit of history in Paychex, worked for our biggest competitor in upstate New York and saw that the focus was for businesses 50 employees and above, and saw that there was a need for people with less than 50 employees. The need was probably greater for people with less than 50 because they do it less frequently or whatever. So he went to the powers that be and said, I think we should really focus on small business. And the powers that be at said competitor said there's no money in it. And small businesses can't even afford to keep the lights on sometimes. They're not going to be able to afford us. So he went out with a $3,000 credit card and started Paychex in a garage, literally. And now we're a $5 billion company, and he still is alive and is on our board. And it's just kind of this success story. And a couple years ago, we acquired Oasis because now we see the need for payroll is still there, but the need for HR is far greater. You don't need payroll if you can't hire people. So That's when they acquired Oasis, bought us for $2 billion. So not a small purchase by any means, but really the focus is that small business, which is something that we were created with that in mind and have made decisions strategically with those people in mind. I think too, the value is really from A to Z, meaning I had restaurant clients, just as an example, who were closed and couldn't, maybe they were even fine dining establishments that couldn't really do carry out. There were programs that were made available through the last administration and through this one that would help them with the economic hardship. So really helping educate and empower our customers to overcome some of those challenges and hardships. One thing that's really unique to us is, and I don't want to get into the weeds on this too much because it can get confusing, but we pool all of our clients together, meaning that we take that liability on from our client. So using the Marana as an example, now all those things that you're liable for are now Oasis liabilities, and you can truly focus on the business. So things like PPP reporting and sick time tracking and all the red tape that came along with COVID and the programs that were associated, we took that on. And that was something that really helped our business owners kind of focus on quality of life for themselves and their employees, rather than how do I make sure that I can get my PPP loan, or how do I make sure that we can survive this, because not a lot of people had that certainty. So really just helping with everything from pre-hire, where do I find my next employee, to retirement. I mean, 401k administration and helping people roll over investments. So it's that's kind of a cop-out because it's everything, but I would say it's really, our mentality is to partner with small business and help them succeed by letting them focus on the things they know about rather than human resources and medical insurance and all that fun stuff.
Is there any misunderstandings or a barrier to your services that might be out
yes.
there? All right,
yeah.
Tell us about that. Like, let's just get that out in the air.
So HR is one of those areas where people really take a head in the sand mentality. They feel like because I don't have any employee complaints right now and I don't have anyone I need to fire, everything is fine. No one's coming to work dressed inappropriately or constantly showing up late, so things are fine. So I would say status quo is probably the biggest hurdle or challenge for me to overcome, because if my business has been successful and we're doing okay, or we're at least surviving, things are fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think the stigma associated with HR are things like write-ups and terminations and problems, right? The only time you hear from an HR professional is if you're in trouble. So I think that's the stigma that people need to understand is human resources. And at Oasis, we use the term human capital management because we view it as your employees and your workforce is your most valuable asset. So the stigma being human resources is negative. I would love for that to be broken, because human resources is really, you asked me who I was as a person. Human resources is who you are as a company. You may have goals and culture and things you're striving for, but human resources is really the foundation that everything is built on. So those two things, that status quo is acceptable, and that HR only means bad stuff.
Yeah. And is your services attainable for most businesses? Is working with you something that businesses can really
Absolutely.
do?
Yeah. So generally we start working with businesses when they have 5 or more employees, just because that's normally when some nuance starts to come in the picture that may not be there with 1 or 2 employees. We have employees that are smaller than that. To give you an idea, I have a massage studio here in Marana that has 8 employees. I have the Reed Park Zoo, which has a lot more than 8. So really, sky is the limit, and it's a bespoke model of service, meaning that we'll create it and customize it based on what the client needs. But I would say in most cases, it's right at that 5 employee mark, all the way up to probably 50 to 100 is really where our sweet spot is, because those companies don't have the ability financially to hire an HR professional or a controller or an office manager. So we're the alternative to that. Give us the opportunity to partner with you. You can outsource and streamline some of these functions, and you don't have to pay $50,000 or $60,000 for an HR professional to get hired on.
Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you or that you want to share, in this platform and space that you have?
That's a good question. I would say probably the number one thing I'm focusing on right now are the post-COVID resources that businesses have available to them. A big one is the employee retention credit. The employee retention credit is a tax credit businesses get just for keeping their staff through COVID because so many people lost jobs. The second one, not as common now, but the PPP loan, getting that forgiven or paying that loan back is a big concern for a lot of people. There's also the shuttered venue grant, which I spoke with you a little bit about. Basically, if you couldn't have live events during COVID, there's a grant that you may be entitled to. And then the biggest one for me, especially with the hiring and retention efforts that a lot of businesses are going through, is their work opportunity tax credit, or WOTC, sometimes it's called. But basically, businesses can receive money, tax credits, for hiring people who are receiving unemployment, people who are receiving state assistance, people who are veterans, maybe they're an ex-felon. So these hires a business will be basically rewarded for. There's a lot of nuance there. You can't just go around asking people if they were on food stamps or if they were a felon.
Yeah.
So helping people kind of navigate those
Wow.
those compliance questions and the regulation behind that. But just to give you an example, you hire a vet, you're eligible for up to $8,000 in tax credits, which we're in an Air Force town, city.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
generally people like hiring vets because they're dependable and all that fun stuff. So yeah, just helping people really tap into the things they're entitled to. A lot of times they don't know that those programs even exist. And if they do, they don't know how to properly take advantage. So that's really where I've made a conscious effort to help Marana Chamber members and really everyone in Southern Arizona.
Yeah. Where can our listeners go to get more information about Oasis, about, in connecting with you?
So all my information is on the Marana Chamber of Commerce website.
Yes.
I would also say oasisadvantage.com is our website. I'm also on LinkedIn. Odds are I won't be very hard to find, to be honest. I'm really involved with the chamber. I'm on the membership committee there. And I'm in a BNI chapter. I'm kind of moving and shaking all over Southern Arizona, but LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active in terms of social media. You can find me there, the / Rob Sandner. But yeah, all my information's on the chamber website. We're proud members there. I've been involved with the chamber since I started with Paychex 6 years ago. So it's been a great network of people, and that's probably the easiest place for most of the people listening to find my info.
I like to hear that. Well, thank you so much, Rob. I
Absolutely.
appreciate you being my first official podcast guest.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's super flattering to be asked at all, but to be your first exclusive
Yes, yeah,
guest
all by
is-
myself
Yeah.
In my third week here
did
at
great.
the Marana Chamber of Commerce. So thank you for being here. And,
Absolutely.
And being an example of 2021 workplace. Everything is about who we are as people and in our
Yeah.
lives and our families, and then fitting in our professional work into that and making sure that we're doing great at all of it, but being happy and fulfilled in life. So thank you for that. And thank you to Anstar Productions Group. We'll see you soon and take care.
Absolutely. Thank you.